Welcome to IST 456, Management of Information Security. Information technology is the vehicle that stores and transports information from one business unit to another. But what happens if the vehicle breaks down? Over time, the concept of computer security has been replaced by the concept of information security. Information security is no longer the sole responsibility of a discrete group of people in the company. Rather, it is the responsibility of every employee, and especially managers. Organizations must realize that information security decisions should involve three distinct groups of managers and professionals, or communities of interest. This includes those in the field of information security, those in the field of information technology, and those from the rest of the organization. The information security team protects the organization's information assets from the many threats they face. Information technology professionals support the business objectives of the organization by supplying and supporting IT appropriate to the business's needs. General business community articulates and communicates organizational policy and objectives and allocates resources to other groups. In order to understand the technical aspects of information security, you must know the definitions of certain information technology terms and concepts. In general, security is defined as being free from danger. To be secure is to be protected from the risk of loss, damage, unwanted modification, or other hazards. Security is often achieved by means of several strategies undertaken simultaneously or used in combination with one another. It is the role of management to ensure that security strategies are properly planned, organized, staffed, directed, and controlled. Specialized areas of security include physical security, operation security, communication security, cyber or computer security, and network security. Information security focuses on the protection of information and the characteristics that give it value, such as confidentiality, integrity, and availability, and includes the technology that houses and transfers that information through a variety of protection mechanisms such as policy, training and awareness programs, and technology. The CIA triangle, confidentiality, integrity, and availability, has expanded into a more comprehensive list of critical characteristics of information. This is called the NSTI-SSI or CNSS security model. It is also known as the Macomber Cube. It provides a more detailed perspective on security. While this model covers the three dimensions of information security, it omits discussion of detailed guidelines and policies that direct the implementation of controls. Another weakness of using this model with too limited an approach is to view it from a single perspective. This graphic illustrates the CNSS security model. Confidentiality, integrity, and availability are along one axis. Policy, education, and technology are along a second axis, and storage, processing, and transmission are along a third axis. Confidentiality is an attribute of information that describes how data is protected from disclosure or exposure to unauthorized individuals or systems. Confidentiality means limiting access to information only to those who need it, and preventing access by those who don't. To protect confidentiality of information, a number of measures are used. These include information classification, secure document and data storage, application of general security policies, education of information custodians and end users, and cryptography. Integrity is an attribute of information that describes how data is whole, complete, and uncorrupted. The integrity of information is threatened when it is exposed to corruption, damage, destruction, or other disruption of its authentic state. Corruption can occur while information is being entered, stored, or transmitted. Availability is an attribute of information that describes how data is accessible and correctly formatted for use without interference or obstruction. Availability of information means that users, either people or other systems, have access to it in a usable format. Availability does not imply that the information is accessible to any user. Rather, it means that it can be accessed when needed by authorized users. Privacy means, in the context of information security, the right of individuals or groups to protect themselves and their information from unauthorized access, providing confidentiality. The information that is collected, used, and stored by an organization is to be used only for the purposes stated to the data owner at the time it was collected. In this context, privacy does not mean freedom from observation. Rather, it means that the information will be used only in ways approved by the person who provided it. Many organizations collect, swap, and sell personal information as a commodity. Today it is possible to collect and combine personal information from several different sources, which has resulted in databases that could be used in ways the original data owner has not agreed to or even knows about. This is called information aggregation. Identification is the access control mechanism whereby unverified entities who seek access to a resource provide a label by which they are known to the system. An information system possesses the characteristic of identification when it is able to recognize individual users. Identification and authentication are essential to establishing the level of access or authorization that an individual is granted. Identification is typically performed by means of a username or some other ID. Authentication is the access control mechanism that requires the validation and verification of an unauthenticated entity's purported identity. It is the process by which a control establishes whether a user or system has the identity it claims to have. Individual users may disclose a personal identification number, a password, or a passphrase to authenticate their identities to a computer system. Authorization is the access control mechanism that represents the matching of an authenticated entity to a list of information assets and corresponding access levels. After the identity of a user is authenticated, authorization defines what the user, whether a person or a computer, has been specifically and explicitly permitted by the proper authority to do, such as access, modify, or delete the contents of an information asset. Accountability is the access control mechanism that ensures all actions on a system, authorized or unauthorized, can be attributed to an authenticated identity. This is also known as auditability. Accountability of information occurs when a control provides assurance that every activity undertaken can be attributed to a named person or automated process. Accountability is most commonly associated with system audit logs. Sun Tzu, the great Chinese general, wrote a book called The Art of War in which he described the importance of information and intelligence in warfare. An important lesson coming out of this book is that to protect your organization's information, you must first know yourself, in other words, be familiar with the information assets to be protected and the systems, mechanisms, and methods used to store, transport, process, and protect them. And then second, you must know the threats you face. A threat represents a potential risk to an information asset, whereas an attack represents an ongoing act against the asset that could result in a loss. Threat agents damage or steal an organization's information or physical assets by using exploits to take advantage of a vulnerability where controls are not present or no longer effective. Unlike threats, which are always present, attacks exist only when a specific act may cause a loss. There are 12 primary categories of threat to information security. These include compromises to intellectual property, deviations in quality of service, espionage or trespass, forces of nature, human error or failure, information extortion, sabotage or vandalism, software attacks, technical hardware failures or errors, technical software failures or errors, technological obsolescence, and theft. Intellectual property can be trade secrets, copyrights, trademarks, and patents. IP is protected by copyright and other laws, carries the expectation of proper attribution or credit to its source, and potentially requires the acquisition of permission for its use as specified in those laws. The unauthorized appropriation of IP constitutes a threat to information security. This category includes two primary areas, software piracy and copyright protection and user registration. An organization's information system depends on the successful operation of many interdependent support systems, including power grids, data and telecommunication networks, part suppliers, service vendors, and even janitorial staff and garbage haulers. Any of these support systems can be interrupted by severe weather, employee illness, or other unforeseen events. Irregularities in internet service, communications, and power supplies can dramatically affect the availability of information and systems. Subcategories of this threat include internet service issues, communication and other service provider issues, and power irregularities. When an unauthorized person gains access to information an organization is trying to protect, the act is categorized as espionage or trespass. Attackers can use many different methods to access the information stored in an information system. Some information gathering techniques are legal, for example, using a web browser to perform market research, although these legal techniques are collectively called competitive intelligence. When information gatherers employ techniques that cross a legal or ethical threshold, they are conducting industrial espionage. Forces of nature can present some of the most dangerous threats because they usually occur with little warning and are beyond control. Because it is not possible to avoid these threats, organizations must implement controls to limit damage and prepare contingency plans for continued operations. Force majeure, or superior force, includes forces of nature as well as civil disorder and acts of war. Most forces of nature can only be mitigated through insurance, although careful facilities design and placement can reduce the likelihood of damage. Some typical force of nature attacks include fire, flood, earthquake, lightning, landslide or mudslide, tornado or severe windstorms, hurricane, typhoon, and tropical depressions, tsunami, electrostatic discharge, and dust contamination. Human error or failure includes acts performed without intent or malicious purpose or in ignorance by an authorized user. When people use information systems, mistakes happen. Similar errors happen when people fail to follow established policy. Inexperience, improper training, and incorrect assumptions are just a few things that can cause human error or failure. One of the greatest threats to an organization's information security is its own employees, as they are the threat agents closest to the information. Human error or failure can often be prevented with training, ongoing awareness activities, and controls. Information extortion, also known as cyber extortion, is common in the theft of credit card numbers. Recent information extortion attacks have involved specialized forms of malware known as ransomware that encrypt users' data and offer to unlock it if the user pays the attacker. Sabotage or vandalism involves the deliberate destruction of a computer system or business, or acts of vandalism to destroy an asset or damage the image of an organization. These acts can range from petty vandalism by employees to organized sabotage against an organization. Vandalism to a website can erode consumer confidence, diminishing an organization's sales, net worth, and reputation. Activism in the digital age includes online activism, cyber terrorism and cyber warfare, and positive online activism. Deliberate software attacks occur when an individual or group designs and deploys software to attack a system. The attack can consist of specially crafted software that attackers trick users into installing on their systems. This software can be used to overwhelm the processing capabilities of online systems or to gain access to protected systems by hidden means. Forms of software attack include malware such as viruses, worms, Trojan horses, polymorphic threats, and hoaxes, backdoors, trapdoors, and maintenance hooks, denial of service and distributed denial of service attacks, email attacks such as spam, mail bombs, and social engineering, and communication interception attacks such as packet sniffers, spoofing, farming, and man-in-the-middle attacks like TCP hijacking or session hijacking. Technical hardware failures or errors occur when a manufacturer distributes equipment containing a known or unknown flaw. These defects can cause the system to perform outside of expected parameters, resulting in unreliable service or lack of availability. In hardware terms, failures are measured in mean time between failure and mean time to failure. Large quantities of computer code are written, debugged, published, and sold before all their bugs are detected and resolved. Sometimes combinations of certain software and hardware reveal new failures that range from bugs to untested failure conditions. Sometimes these bugs are not errors, but purposeful shortcuts left by programmers for benign or malign reasons, bypassing security checks. These are known as trapdoors. Among the most popular bug tracking website is BugTrack, hosted by Security Focus, which provides up-to-the-minute information on the latest security vulnerabilities, as well as a thorough archive of past bugs. The Open Web Application Security Project list of the 10 most critical web application security risks for 2013 includes injection, broken authentication and session management, cross-site scripting, insecure direct object references, security misconfiguration, sensitive data exposure, missing function-level access control, cross-site request forgery, using components with known vulnerabilities, and unvalidated redirects and forwards. Antiquated or outdated infrastructure can lead to unreliable and untrustworthy systems. This is an example of technological obsolescence. Management must recognize that when technology becomes outdated, there is a risk of losing data integrity from attacks. Ideally, proper planning by management should prevent technology from becoming obsolete, but when obsolescence is clear, management must take immediate action. Perhaps the most significant case of technology obsolescence in recent years is Microsoft's Windows XP, which, although closed by Microsoft, is still used in many organizations. The value of information is diminished when it is copied without the owner's knowledge. Physical theft can be controlled easily using a wide variety of measures, from locked doors to trained security personnel and the installation of alarm systems. Electronic theft, however, is a more complex problem to manage and control. Theft is often an overlapping category with software attacks, espionage or trespass, information extortion, and compromises to intellectual property. Management is the process of achieving objectives using a given set of resources. A manager is a member of the organization assigned to marshal and administer resources, coordinate the completion of tasks, and handle the many roles necessary to complete the desired objectives. Managers have a number of roles. In their informational role, they collect, process, and use information that can affect the completion of the objective. In their interpersonal role, they interact with superiors, subordinates, outside stakeholders, and other parties that influence or are influenced by the completion of the task. In their decisional role, they select from among alternative approaches and resolve conflicts, dilemmas, or challenges. There is a difference between leadership and management. A leader influences employees so that they are willing to accomplish objectives. He or she is expected to lead by example and demonstrate personal traits that instill a desire in others to follow. In other words, leadership provides purpose, direction, and motivation to those that follow. By comparison, a manager administers the resources of an organization. He or she creates budgets, authorizes expenditures, and hires employees. Effective managers can be effective leaders. There are three basic behavioral types of leader. The autocratic typically follows a top-down decision approach. The democratic typically engages their team in making decisions. The laissez-faire often allows the team to make decisions on their own, only getting involved when necessary. Traditional management theory uses the core principles of planning, organizing, staffing, directing, and controlling. However, popular management theory categorizes the principles of management into planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. The process of developing, creating, and implementing strategies for the accomplishment of objectives is called planning. Strategic planning occurs at the highest levels of the organization and for a long period of time, usually 5 or more years. Tactical planning focuses on production planning and integrates organizational resources at a level below the entire enterprise and for an intermediate duration, such as 1 to 5 years. Operational planning focuses on the day-to-day operations of local resources and occurs in the present or short term. Governance is the set of responsibilities and practices exercised by the board and executive management with the goal of providing strategic direction, ensuring that objectives are achieved, ascertaining that risks are managed appropriately, and verifying that the enterprise's resources are used responsibly. Governance emphasizes escalating the importance of information security to the uppermost levels of the organization and providing it with an appropriate level of management. The unique functions of information security management are known as the 6 Ps: planning, policy, programs, protection, people, and project management. Planning as part of info security management is an extension of the basic planning model discussed earlier in this chapter. Included in the InfoSec Planning model are activities necessary to support the design, creation, and implementation of information security strategies as they exist within the IT planning environment. Several types of information security plans exist. These include incident response planning, business continuity planning, disaster recovery planning, policy planning, personnel planning, technology rollout planning, risk management planning, and security program planning, including education, training, and awareness. Included in the information security planning model are activities necessary to support the design, creation, and implementation of information security strategies within the planning environments of all organizational units, including information technology. Because the information security strategic plans must support not only the information technology use and protection of information assets, but those of the entire organization. It is imperative that the Chief Information Security Officer work closely with all senior managers in developing information security strategy. Policy is a set of organizational guidelines that dictate certain behavior within the organization. In information security, there are 3 general categories of policy. These are enterprise information security policy, issue-specific security policy, and system-specific policies. Programs refer to information security operations that are specifically managed as separate entities. A security education, training, and awareness program is one such entity. Other programs that may emerge include a physical security program, complete with fire, physical access, gates, guards, and so on. The protection function is executed via a set of risk management activities, including risk assessment and control, as well as protection mechanisms, technologies, and tools. Each of these mechanisms represents some aspect of the management of specific controls in the overall information security plan. People are the most critical link in the information security program. This area of information security includes security personnel and the security of personnel, as well as aspects of the security education, training, and awareness programs mentioned earlier. The final component is the application of thorough project management discipline to all elements of the information security program. Project management involves identifying and controlling the resources applied to the project, as well as measuring progress and adjusting the process as progress is made toward the goal. Information security is a process, not a project. However, each element of an information security program must be managed as a project, even if the overall program is perpetually ongoing. How can information security be both a process and a project? It is, in fact, a continuous series or chain of projects. Some aspects of information security are not project-based, rather they are managed processes and are ongoing.